Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Let's talk about math and everything, everywhere, all at once, and how everything matters. We'll get into it. Okay, so whether we're talking about taxes or verse jumping, there's a lot of math on display in universe as far as everything, everywhere, all at once is concerned. And there's also math on the meta level. And we're going to get into various things as far as those topics are concerned. Um, Now, spoilers may come up, right? I'm going to try to avoid major spoilers, but I might be talking about something and it may give something away in the movie. Um, and I just want to put that out there. It may matter to you, it may not. But also, if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend it. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but it's worth watching. So with that being said, right? Spoilers are here. Just assume that, just to be safe. And we're gonna get into things. Okay, so when we're introduced to the movie, right? We're dealing with Evelyn, Waymond, and their daughter Joy. And they're living a somewhat everyday life, right? Running a laundromat, um, dealing with the IRS, dealing with their taxes, right? Which there's some math for you to start. Before I go further, I want to point out there was a class where I was teaching like a while back. It was like on contemporary mathematics, so we were dealing with a lot of applied mathematics, right? And we had a unit on taxes, and that generated the most interest. And I kind of get it, right? Because we don't usually talk about taxes, right? Which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But anyway, I digress. So that's like the basic setup, and it isn't too long into the movie before we start seeing some craziness, right? So I wanted to talk about the general premise, right? We're dealing with a multiverse here, and we're dealing with characters that are able to eventually, jump between universes. The idea of verse jumping is that you can jump into different versions of yourself throughout the multiverse, and you can gain like their skills, things along those lines, and also like inhabit their body. And that's horrifying in its own right, but that's part of it, right? And here's the kicker. So with the multiverse here, is generated by choices that are made by different characters, right? So the potential is infinite. We have alpha versions of the characters, and we find out their fates throughout the movie. And here's another kicker. So it's not just that the multiverse is generated by different choices, right? That's crazy, and there's an infinite amount of choice. But the verse jumping works by you doing something that is statistically unlikely. And that allows you to tap into that verse jumping technology that was developed by like Alpha Evelyn, as we find out. And that's really cool. So like we already have like statistics and the multiverse at play here, and they talk about various aspects of that throughout the film. And then we just see some cool and interesting stuff, right? We see some wonky stuff across the universes, and there's math in the combat, how it all functions, how it all flows, how surreal it can feel. There's math in the timing of everything, how it's filmed, the cinematography, what's getting across in that combat. And one of the big things in the movie is that there's an everything bagel. That's probably more literal than you're expecting. Um, and the idea is it kind of has like everything superimposed on each other, like every choice, every action, and I'm trying to think because there was probably like more to that than I'm saying, but that's like the big idea, and that factors into the plot and how things progress. But it's just like, hey, more math. I dig it. Um, and so I think that's all cool, right? And just this idea that they're being pretty direct with some of the math, right? Like, but even if they didn't say like, hey, we're dealing with this mathematical concept or that mathematical concept, the math would still be there, right? Because it's everywhere and it's in everything. All at once. Oh, oh. I did it. Yay. I don't know what I did. I just said it. I'm not mad. That was bad, but still. Okay, but seriously though, right? Like math is everywhere and in everything, and again, like all at once. There's no escaping that. But the idea is like it should be something that we feel empowered by, but not fear. And so I like it's going to be there either way, right? But it's like, hey, what can we do with it, right? Like, are we able to decipher this part of it and that part of it and use it for our benefit, use it to say something about the universe? So it's cool to see things in the movie, take that idea like, hey, math is everywhere, everything all at once. And I'm going to try to cut back on doing that now that it's out there. But seriously, right? It's like, hey, so the math is there. It's like, well, what are we doing with it? And they do some crazy stuff with it. And I think that's cool. And on that meta sense, I talked about like the fighting and the cinematography and all that, right? But there's math at every conceivable level. There's math in the lighting, math in the sound, math in the costumes, how they were designed, how they fit the actors. There's math and the actors themselves, right? Like the line reading, the hours that they put in, everything that they're doing with their voice, the volume at which they speak, how fast they're talking, all of it. Math, right? There's because okay, right? Math is just like it's everything everywhere all at once. Okay, I did it again. But but seriously speaking, right? It's just like color, light as a whole, sound, all of that is math and every property that's associated with them and how we use them. It's all of that. And I think that's cool because right, like math in an academic sense is a small fraction of a much larger whole. And so when we're dealing with math on a universal level, it's really universal. And in the case of everything everywhere all at once, it's multiversal. And I can dig that. And not only is there like math and how things are filmed, the color, the light, the sound, and how all of those are used, but there's math in the money, math in the budget that was used to used to make the movie. From what I found, there was several different things, but on the lower end, I think like $14.3 million. It made over 143.4 million. So, um, like over 10 times the budget. So that's pretty cool. But there's math not only in the budget, but how that money's being used, how advertisements being done, all that good stuff. There's just math across the board, right? And you have so many people that are making a film. There's so much math at every turn, at every level, and I think that's cool. And I can go on and on and on, but I actually wanted to take some time and talk about my feelings uh, with the movie. Also, I realized I have some stuff cooking in the background, and I can hear things now. Um, but I digress. I don't know. I have a lot of energy for this video. That's just where I'm at today. So I hope you've been dealing with that okay. But either way, the energy's coming at you. So here we are. That's getting louder. But yeah. So when it comes to the movie overall, I dug it. Everything, everywhere, all at once. It's a long movie, but most of it is a pretty enjoyable ride because it's somewhere like 140 minutes. So it is not a short movie, but they do some interesting things. And there's a lot of like math, a lot of philosophy, a lot of things just about life, and I dig all of it. And the ideas that, sorry, the big idea that I took away from it is like, you know, I feel like a lot of us we get to a point where we're feeling nihilistic, right? Like regardless of what you believe in, it's just like it can be stressful to think about us dying, and it's like, oh well, then nothing matters, right? Like we're all gonna have it end someday, right? And in the case of the multiverse, they're seeing all these like infinite choices play out as much as one can see those things, and wondering that same thing is like, well, why does it all matter? And the thing is, right, like you could say that nothing matters because things are just gonna happen anyway, or you could say it for a number of reasons, right? But the thing is, like, you can take that nihilism, you can have it like graduate to existentialism and say, like, hey, well, if nothing matters, then I can choose my own purpose. You can go that route, but you could also flip it, right? Because you're like, well, if everything is connected and everything um is just happening, right? You could make an argument that even though you could say that nothing matters, right? You could say that actually everything matters, right? Because everything is impacting everything else in ways that we do not always perceive, right? And that's just with our universe. So if you're in everything everywhere all at once, it's like there's an infinite amount of universes, and all these things are happening, but it's all connected. Everything impacts everything else. So life can be crazy, and it can be real tempting to say that nothing matters. But either you can use this to your advantage to say that, hey, if nothing matters, I choose my own purpose, or you could say, well, it looks like nothing matters, but actually everything does, right? Because everything is connected. Everything impacts everything, all across the timeline. And in the case of everything, everywhere, all at once, all across the multiverse. So I can go on and on and on, but I like that that's a big part of the movie. Like, like choosing what you want to do with your life. Because it's like, hey, you could say nothing matters, or you could say everything matters. Either way, you get to choose what you want to do, how you live your life, who you value, how you spend your time, what you do, right? Like, you can still be kind, even if something doesn't always make sense, right? That's not to say like you have to like accept this all the disrespect, but it's just saying like you don't have to be a jerk out there. You can still be kind in a world where it seems to be cruel sometimes, and all of that matters. Kindness matters. I cannot stress that enough. So, with all that being said, I enjoyed everything, everywhere, all at once. I thought it was beautifully shot, beautifully written and acted. It's not going to be perfect to some people, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be. There were parts of it that I didn't like, but I mostly liked it. And I think whether or not you end up liking it or not, it is a movie that is worth watching.